All right, Hardin County, I'm back. My kids are out swimming. I have some quiet time, and I really want to start talking about Hardin Hills. The saga is not over. It keeps going until the grand opening of the new Vancrest facility in Hardin County. I'm going to be holding my breath because every step along the way, there's always something that's going to be an issue. But I want to start getting the information out of what happened April 11th and just explain it to everybody. But the first thing I'm going to try to do is explain moving county beds. What are county beds and why did we have to move them to licensed beds? Okay. I'm not an authority on this. This is all research that was done, that was compiled. I mean, I talked to people and we had other people making phone calls and doing research trying to figure out what is happening, because essentially it was not a good reliable source to go to the commissioners and ask questions. They would not answer your questions. I tried. Okay, they would not answer questions. And partly, seemingly, they didn't know these answers, so you couldn't ask them some of these questions and have them answer you because they didn't know. Okay, you probably have heard about the beds if you've been involved at all in Hardin Hills. And the way counties are government entities of themselves, right, outside of these parameters, and the governments were built long ago, right, and they have their own laws. And so we had a county nursing home that had a certain number of beds in it, didn't pay taxes, pretty much a nonprofit organization, and was not licensed by the state of Ohio. Okay, there are beds, they're county run. And so we're going to put them down here. These county beds are not licensed. We do not pay the state any tax for these beds, right? Every year. We don't do that. They're kind of protected, right? And there's a huge mandate from, I don't know if it's a mandate, but a huge call from the state that they're taking up all the kind of county beds, nursing home beds that they can. They don't, for some reason, seem to want to have nursing home facilities anywhere, like nationwide, like not just Ohio, but nationwide. And so these nursing homes are disappearing. They want people to do nursing at home, to stay in their own home and have nursing care there. The reality is that there are lots and lots of people who cannot do that. They, be it physical issues that they need help moving from one place to another, bathing, medication things. Okay, I'm getting off on a rabbit trail. But that's what they're doing. They want to move people to stay in their own homes and not have nursing homes. And so they're disappearing. And that's the biggest threat. Okay, so we have these county bed licenses, right? That we started out with. Infirmary Farms had more beds than what we have now. We were down to 85 beds back in 2020. And this is a whole nother thing. We sold 15 of those beds to another county. Okay, so current commissioners mostly know you can take a county bed and you can sell it to another county, right? If they show they have a certificate of need, you just sell it kind of over, no big deal. It's a trade-off, right? And we'll talk about that in another video. Okay, so they did that, easy peasy, no big deal. We got $225,000 from that deal. Okay, when you're talking about, and remember, there are not other county nursing homes. There's only like 7, 8 in the state now. And so it's not like we can just sell these things to anybody, right? It has to be a county. And so if you can't do a move like this, now you're going to have to do a move like this. And you're talking about getting a state license for those beds. Not easy. It takes a long time. Okay. Thankfully, our county commissioners hired Rolf Law, which they've used before, #1 nursing home lawyers in the United States, right? They even worked with a the lawyer, one of the lawyers there had already done, I don't know if he said 5 or 6 different county home kind of transfers things. So he should have known how all this goes. And I'm not going to say that Rolf Law didn't know. Okay. They probably did know, and whether our commissioners didn't take their advice, if they didn't advise them well, it's hard to tell. That is all confidential information that we don't know. We can only speculate. But somehow there was a breakdown either on Rolf Law side or Rolf. Now let me tell you, Rolf, Rolf, not Roof. Okay, Rolf. But somehow there's a breakdown in this thought process. Okay, so we're not doing a lateral move. We're going to move the beds from a county up to a state licensed bed. When they're state licensed, now we can hold them for 1 year and we can sell them to other private facilities. So what's that process? The best that I can determine is that, and I can tell you what I've seen through emails and record requests is that, and how these kind of play into the bed licenses, I'm not sure. So Rolf Law, they spent a long time working on the occupancy and use, which is what you have to have for a facility to occupy it and use it, like how many people you can have in the building. They did not have this document from 1955, and it took several months and lots of communication to try and track down the document. They could not find it, and then they reached out to other agencies. They did find one thing, it wasn't good, and so my feeling is that they had to actually go through and do a new occupancy and use form, which then costs money, right? You have to have different inspections along that process to get that certificate. You have to have their certificate to be in the building. So whether that has anything to do with the bed licenses, I'm not sure, right? But this is part of the Rolf Law paper trail. So maybe they were trying to get to the bed certifications and it just took too long. I'm not sure. So the first time that I hear about this is in January. The occupancy and use from the Rolf Law, right there, talking about, so January 12th, they're talking about an issue with a certificate, right? So you may have to have that to move these beds up into their license, right? Again, in February, they're talking about the status and trying to find it, like I said, and you have to essentially go through and have these inspections done in order to get your occupancy of use. So let's go on a little bit further, and now we're in March 31st, right? We're looking at March 31st, and I think we're just now, so March 15th, a successful inspection for the occupancy and use. So that does not give you a lot of time. If you don't even have these basic of documents. So, I'm just speculating, but back in October, when they first contacted Rolf Law, look, we have plenty of time. We can get this done. We can't do this without this document, possibly. And it's taken all the way to March to get this done. Okay. And so that's a big question mark as part of this. Okay. So we have these beds and we have 85 of them. We lost the 15. We have to move them, right? And so it doesn't appear. They had a license review back in October of 26 with Rolf Law, a licensure review. It cost $3,000 to do this. So, they've known about this for a long time. But when it came down to January, February, March, April 11th, right? somewhere I had heard that Rolf Law said there wasn't enough time to move the beds up to a state level, right? So how do you do that, right? You got to have all your paperwork in place. I, this whole time, right? We're talking Rolf Law's investigating ghost beds. They're investigating how many beds do we even have. And so part of the question of Hardin Hills is that they don't know. They don't really know. They have A, B, C, D, E, and F wing at Hardin Hills, right? And so F wing never had beds on it, right? But they have 85 beds is what is on ODH's, what ODH has us having, right? But they're not operating with 85 beds. They had 7 of these ghost beds that were, they're just kind of termed ghost beds. They're kind of beds that are just kind of hanging out there, like you have them. And so there was a scramble right at the end when they were started this process. So Rolf Law said you don't have enough time to file with ODH to get the bed licenses before the closure on July 10th, right? John Cross and Schwimmer came in and said, go ahead and file, right? They've seen this done in other places. Okay, so now the commissioners are scrambling, and Rolf Law is they're working alongside them to get these beds licensed, right? So they say, okay, we have 85 beds. Well, in order to have those beds licensed, you have to have all the beds present, right? You have to be able to see all 85 beds. So as a side note, when they were moving people out of Hardin Hills, I think I said Hillcrest, Hardin Hills, they were closing down these rooms. They were stripping the beds, they were moving the furniture, they were cleaning all the things out. And then here at the last minute, they realized, no, you have to have these beds dressed and ready to go, like you have a working facility, which they have to do anyways for the residents. You have to look like you're a full facility. Anybody can come in at any time, right? So at the last minute, they're out there dressing beds and doing all these things. And you can see in the meeting notes with the commissioners them talk about F-wing, right? Or maybe the emails, they talk about F-wing. And so they have all the beds filled up on their upper levels, and they have, I don't know if it was all 7 of the beds, possibly, that they started dressing these beds down on F-wing, putting beds in with sheets and dressers and things to make them beds so that they can port them over into their licenses. But they didn't have a call light system because the beds were never down there to begin with. And so they didn't have a automatic call light system. And if you don't have that, then you can't have those beds. So we essentially lost 7 beds. And they didn't have enough time at that point to get the call light system put in. And the cost to do that, you're putting in a call light system to close the facility. So anyway, so we lost 7 beds. We didn't. Vancrest lost 7 beds because those licenses just went back to the state. They just disappeared. And so they didn't have call lights. They couldn't get the rooms up to spec well enough to transfer them to these licenses. So they're gone, right? So they have to be dressed. The beds have to be dressed. So basically, so when you know how many beds you have, so I think we ended up with 78 beds is what we were allowed to sell at the end of the day. All this trying to figure out, okay. So you say, okay, we have 78 beds, and they screwed up the resolution when they did it the first time is how you know this, right? So they had 78 beds. You take that, and I don't know all the paperwork that goes along with it, but you're going to give that to ODH, and you're going to put in your application to move these beds from county-owned to licensed ODH licensed beds, transient beds, I think they call them, so that they can be sold. Now, you only hold these for 1 year. So once you have your bed certified that date, you have 1 year to that date to get those beds into the hands of somebody else so they hold them. If that year lapses and and something goes wrong, your beds are gone, right? They just get sent back to ODH and are gone, and nobody has them, and you get no money for them, okay? And so you're going to put in your application with ODH. They review it. They have different boards that review these applications. It normally takes 5 to 9 months to do this process, right? Which in October, you could have started this. You would have had plenty of time if you had all your paperwork ready and you knew how many beds you had, then you had plenty of time to get these beds into a transient position. When you're trying to do it in March, it's not going to work because you don't have enough time. So, um, so ODH gets it. They send it through their board, probably the 3 different times. They review it. They come out. They do a massive inspection of your facility to see if they want to review these beds. Now, they do not have to grant these beds to sell. If they find things wrong, and, from what I had heard, it was about a 50-50 chance that we were going to get approval and that you weren't going to get approval. And so that was a really big deal. Thankfully, ODH came back and approved our beds. Now, that was kind of a crazy couple days. It took a couple days, and lots of people from the state and Rolf Law came up and spent the 2 days up here with them. I haven't seen that bill come through. I should ask for that. And they looked at everything. They looked at all kinds of stuff. The building, they went through, all the maintenance, the bills, the files, the residents, all the things. So they approve that. They provide you with a certificate. From that certificate day, you start to pay taxes on those beds. Okay. The state taxes for a bed is $5,000 a year. Okay. So it's kind of a big deal that county homes don't have to pay that tax. Of course, they're not licensed, right? ODH is not looking over the quality of those beds or how those beds are used. So, it's kind of give and take there. So right now, because Vancrest, so we've accepted an offer from Vancrest, but Vancrest does not hold the beds yet, right? So they haven't gone through that process fully yet. And so we are paying taxes on those beds, those 78 beds. And so if you say, okay, you have them for 6 months, because it takes about 5 months to get through that certificate of need process, we're going to pay $200 or $2,500 per bed for this year. So we got a little chunk of money. We're going to pay a big chunk of that out to the state in just having these bed licenses. Okay. I hope that clears up. I know I talk a lot. There's a lot of information, but basically there's a whole lot of process that it takes to get these beds from a county up to a state level so that you could even just move them, right? So let me say the part that's missing when everybody found out about the closing of Hardin Hills on April 11th, John Cross got involved. I mean, a whole bunch of people got involved. And he knew that there was another county, it starts with a W, it's not from around here, had like in 2 months' time had done this process, the process that takes 5 to 9 months, right? ODH made an exception for this other county to get these beds move through. They didn't do the whole board thing. I mean, they kind of done it all in-house and, move this paperwork along really quickly. And that's exactly what ODH did for us. I mean, they, definitely did us a favor as a community for whatever, like I said, whatever happened between our commissioners and, being able to successfully manage this transfer. For whatever reason that wasn't happening in a timely manner, that John Cross was able to help push, get our case before ODH and the urgency of what we were dealing with to them. and they had kindness on us and passed all that through. And I did my best to call anybody and everybody that I could to let them know that our community was in need. We have other people who were also calling on behalf of our community, and letting ODH and anybody who would listen that our county needs this, and they were able to step up and make this exception for us. So what happened in a very short amount of time to get us to where we are now. So that's when you hear like the beds are saved. It's not the physical beds. It is these paper licenses that are finite. And here's the interesting thing, looking forward on another 20 years when all these baby boomers are hitting nursing home age, that we're not going to have nursing homes for them. So it'll be interesting to see if ODH turns around or the states turn around and they start saying, oh, maybe we do need nursing homes, and then we get a whole bunch of new nursing homes. So ODH can take back these bed licenses, but that they can always give them. So if maybe you have a community that kind of popped up, and now your population has exploded, and you can go to ODH and say, hey, we need a new nursing home for these reasons. Okay. So you can here's another part of it. I'm telling you, there's so much information. Every 4 years, which this was one of those 4-year markers in July, you can petition ODH to get beds, right? So if you're one of those communities that you say, hey, we have a need, and you meet their criteria for their applications, that happened this July, that you can put your application in. Well, maybe you put your application in before and they grant it in July. That was not our situation. I did not get a ton of information about that. But every 4 years. And so 4 years from this July, you're going to get another crop of new beds, maybe put back into communities that are growing. And so now you can get new beds, but it's kind of a money that they hold. It's a tokens that they hold, that they say, okay, we're going to give out 100,000 beds, and that's it. Not even that many. But right now they're taking up beds. They're gathering up all the beds that they can and kind of storing them, I suppose, and then they can dole them out later when it's maybe more profitable. I'm not sure. So that'll be something, if you're interested in nursing homes, like you're getting older and you want to know what your options are, look into it. Medicaid is another thing that you should be looking into. I've learned a ton about Medicaid and Medicare, thanks to some really intelligent people that I got involved in. And, definitely do your research if you feel like at all you're going to be headed that direction. So, all right. Again, always, if you have questions, reach out to me. I will answer what I can. And if I don't know, I'll do the best that I can. So that's what I know about moving the bed licenses up. The next video is going to be something else, and we'll just see how much we can get done today. Thank you.